right. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much for helping me. Shelby Hill, educator at Odessa High School and an SFA principalship candidate. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Mauricio Marquez, principal at Odessa High.
I'm Hector Lamone, associate principal at Odessa High School.
And I am over here. I'm Rachel Gehrig, and I am the other associate principal at Odessa High School.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, thank you for taking out time out of your busy day. I know y'all have a million things going on. So I really appreciate you helping me out on this assignment. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so that we can go ahead and get started. If it'll let me. All right. So again, the reason for this meeting is just to kind of get a feel for what walkthroughs are, what walkthrough forms look like, how to fill them out, what principals actually look for whenever they are in a classroom, and what they want to accomplish when they have those conversations with the teachers, and what they're wanting the teachers to really see and get out of them being in the classroom, and why principals walk through in the classroom. So what we're gonna do, you can see the agenda is we're gonna run through 3 different walkthrough forms, and then the 4th form is going to be ours that y'all use on us as teachers at Odessa High. So there is gonna be 4 forms that we're looking at. The pros and cons of what those forms do for those, the questions that are on them, the topics that are on the forms, so what's good, what's bad about them. And then we're gonna look at the 2019 English 1 scores from Odessa High. And then we're going to create a 1-page walkthrough form based off of what do you wanna see in those English 1 classrooms, or technically any classroom at that. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the forms. There we go. All right. Can y'all see the form?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay. So this is the first form that we had found. And so it just really, the top part is your basic, teacher's name, observer's name, what are you observing? I really like this middle section, just kind of what are you actually seeing? It's pretty basic. And so it kind of tells you as the teacher, whenever you see this filled out, what your observer is really going to be telling you whenever you go into that post conference. And so it says, I do. So it's really going to be the observer is going to really do the instruction. And then the we do is kind of working together. Maybe I know what was wrong in the classroom, or I didn't know what was wrong. And so we work that out. And again, you do it together. And then the independent time is really, you know exactly what's going on and what was wrong in the classroom, and you know what to do to fix it. And so then it's just observer reflections. And then, so this would be a form that you left with the teacher when you were done with the observation. So just kind of give me your pros and cons on what you see, what you don't like, what you do like, stuff like that.
I think that I do, we do, you do together, and you do independent time is cool because we've been doing relay training with our staff. And so especially in the tested areas, that is actually something that is part of relay and how it works and what the kids do. So I think that's kind of cool. I don't know that it's actually as detailed though, this whole entire sheet. I don't think it's as detailed as we would probably like to see it, because at any 5-minute interval that you walk in, you're going to see the I do, you're going to see the we do, or you're going to see the you do. You're probably not going to see all of them at that time. So.
And I would agree with that. One thing I was going to say is, yeah, I mean, this would be great if I was going in with that specific lens That's specifically what I'm looking for. But there are times that we genuinely walk in and, you know, I mean, I'm more of a menu style guy. You know, have a menu and then I've got all these items I can choose from. And for that particular day, maybe I'm only specifically focusing on, you know, items, you know, I don't know, 13 and 14. So having more detail and more options in regards to what I'm actually observing would be good. I'm also not huge on the check boxes, so I will say that I like the open areas where I can go in and specifically write or fill in details from what I observe. I like the open-ended or the open response portion of this form. I do like that.
I agree with both of what Mr. Limon and Ms. Garrett had said. I do like the fact that it's a one pager. It does allow for both things, the check the boxes of the I do, we do, you do, as well as the open observer reflection. So anything that was not necessarily covered under the actual boxes, you as the observer have the opportunity to actually write your notes on what you were able to observe. Because I do agree with Ms. Garrett that there in a lesson, especially walkthroughs, typically they're 3 to 5, maybe 7 minutes long. You're not going to see all of those things in that 5 to 7 minute time period. You're just not. So I do like the open-ended responses that allows for the observer to write his or her specific notes on what they were able to observe.
So how do y'all feel? Like, to me, it was really confusing, and it's because I've only been in ECIC, so I've only really seen the one that y'all fill out on us. So is it typical that an observer would leave something like it says here at the bottom, you know, follow a meeting if needed? Is that typically something that's normal? Like, this is what I found interesting about this one, is I didn't think that it was normal to leave it with the teacher. I mean,
Yeah.
I know ours is all online, so I don't really know.
Shelby, there are some people who write notes. There's a specific person in our district that I know that I used to take her around to walkthroughs years ago, and she wrote a note to every single teacher and left it in their box and said, "Thank you for letting me observe today." And she really didn't ever have anything that said, "I need to talk to you about anything." She would just give them an attaboy kind of thing. But yeah, you could do that if you chose to, but this would not necessarily be electronic. And since all of ours are electronic, I guess we could we could do it on there. Thank you for letting me be there. And then we have a follow-up meeting. That could be part of ours at the bottom. But I think our electronic piece is what we like to use so that, you know, we can track, we do the trend walkthroughs as well. So
True.
just to see what's going on the campus and be able to, what do you call it? Disaggregate the data, you know, just get it all together.
Disaggregate and get a campus vibe. It's not specific to any one particular teacher. It's more trends that we're seeing across the entire campus.
Right.
Having been in a few different districts and done, you know, I mean, different walkthroughs, different forums at different campus levels and different districts. I'll say that it varies from district to district. I haven't been to any district where it's the same as the last one. I will say this, it really depends on who's at the top, what specifically they want. I've been in a district where, you know, the boss wanted us to leave feedback specific to that teacher in writing after every walkthrough. And there's a great side to that. There's also, you know, a flip side to that. You know, it's a lot of extra work. You know, when it's positive, it's great and it goes really well, but when it's not that positive, it can be misconstrued in some instances. You know, I felt like there were times I had to have multiple meetings with a staff member because of some feedback or something in writing that I left behind for them. And sometimes it ended up leading to more questions than clarity. So, I mean, it just kind of depends. You know, I think if it's focused, it works really well. Follow-up meeting needed. You know, that's a little vague because if I'm a teacher, I'm working hard and you say that the follow-up meeting is needed and that's all you leave, I probably would have been that teacher that would have worried and thought I was in trouble or I did something wrong. And on the flip side, you've got teachers that don't worry about that stuff and follow-up meeting, yes or no. You know, I mean, they'll take whatever you throw at them. So, you know, I mean, if you're going to do something like that, I think it needs to be a little more specific. And, you know, I mean, sometimes that's just a conversation that happens. I've been in other campuses where, you know, they say if something needs to be addressed, Some say you address it immediately there in the class. You don't let time go by. And some say, you know what, be professional. That's their classroom. Allow the students to see the teacher as the authority figure. Don't stomp all over them as the authority figure in the classroom. Wait until after class and address that teacher then, or, you know, at the end of the day. It just really depends on where you're at and who's leading.
The only thing that I will follow up on that is Mr. Lemont's last comments. In the event that the teacher's doing something that is definitely needs to be changed, you obviously do it in a very professional, private manner, where you get the kids to begin on some type of independent practice, and you move the teacher to a side and just work on that. Because what you don't want, if you go in their first period, you don't want that same behavior to be exhibited in periods 2, 3, 4, or so on and so forth. So if it doesn't need the immediate attention, then that's fine. That's something that you can meet with the teacher afterwards. But if it's something that is certainly detrimental to student learning, that needs to be addressed immediately, it needs to be done at that point, but in a very confidential, private manner. You know, what happens, unfortunately, too many times, if an administrator is in that classroom and he or she leaves, we have just validated whatever took place. If we did not address it, in the minds of the teacher, they're thinking, well, Mr. Marcus was here, he didn't say anything, so there must be, you know, good instruction or a good practice or, you know, appropriate behavior. So if we don't address it immediately, unfortunately, it can lend to the teacher thinking that that's the appropriate, whether it's behavior, whether it's instruction, whether it's strategy. So in order to remedy that, it does need to be handled as soon as possible.
Awesome. Anything else before we move on to the next one? Sweet. Thank you. That was a lot of information. It's really going to be helpful. All right. I don't understand why it's not. There we go. We'll do this one. All right. So this one's a little different. It's more of like that one page. And honestly, it kind of looked like ours. Ours is just, you know, a little bit more extended. And so this one gives you, again, more freedom to kind of give comments and really dive into what the teacher and the students are doing in the classroom. So I kind of really like this one. There are a few things, again, I don't like some of the wording, but that's just typical. You're not going to like everything that you see, but what are y'all thoughts on this more informal walkthrough form?
I like the fact at the top that it does already say the evaluator will likely not observe all of the teaching elements listed below in any one formal observation. I think too many times, unfortunately, teachers, if they don't have various boxes checked, that's an immediate concern to them, and you're not going to. There's no way that in 3 to 5 to 7 minutes that you're going to be able to see all those things. It's impossible. So I'm glad that it's already established there. I do like the fact that I typically do like this type of form because you're able to be specific in whatever you were able to see and check it off, but it then does provide you with, again, open comments. I do like the fact that it's what is students doing, what is the teacher doing, because that's very objective. When you walk in, you can write down specifically what exactly did you see. If you saw the teacher sitting at her desk, you can write teacher was sitting at her desk. And that's not subjective, that's very objective. So I do like those first two items there on this one.
And I prefer this form style as well. I think Mr. Marquez hit the nail on the head. That's one thing I was going to say is the first thing I saw that I liked was what were students doing. And if you notice, it's the first thing on there and then the teacher. You know, too often we get tied up in just watching the teacher. And really what's important is what are the kids doing? That teacher might have routines and procedures and protocols in place that those kids come in and they know exactly what to do and they get to work and it's student centered. That doesn't always involve the teacher talking the entire time or circulating the classroom or being too hands-on if that teacher has done the work in advance and set that stuff up so that students are operating, you know, it's a normal thing. So, you know, I mean, I would say 95% of any walkthrough or observation that I do, you know, as a teacher, you'll see me walk over to a random kid and I'll whisper discreetly. I don't want to interrupt anything, but I'll say, you know, I'll whisper to them. I'll say, what are you doing? You know, or I'll say, what are y'all working on? You know, tell me what you're supposed to be doing. And I like that because if the kid can tell me what they're supposed to be doing, what they're working on. You know, it goes back to that saying, or you know, however it goes, the best way to learn something is to teach someone else. If the kid can sit there and teach me exactly what they're doing, then I know that that teacher has done a pretty good job in relaying that information to those kids.
How would y'all, like, when it says other, and that's kind of my, I guess, and I guess that's why it gives you, you know, the comments and feedback and stuff. Why would you check other? Like if it was something that, you know, if it wasn't something that was on the list already, then I mean, I guess I just don't understand what the
Most of those on there though, Shelby, are positive.
mhm.
Like instructional time is used effectively, questions are posed that promote higher order thinking, teacher provides student with positive, timely, and responsive feedback. Maybe a teacher said something really out of line to a kid, or maybe not even out of line, but just you know, no, that's not correct, John, stop talking. And maybe you put other and you say, you know, please work on addressing students with, you know, in a respectful manner. And you address that with them because that's something you saw that wasn't working right in the classroom that day. I don't know.
No, I agree. There's just so many components that there's no way that you can include it on in one form, unfortunately.
Right.
So it does leave the opportunity, like Ms. Garrick said, for you to write in specific if there's something that you want to give either praise to, or if you have a concern with, it gives you that flexibility. I can tell you, I do love the questions to ponder. I always call it reflections on mine. And that's kind of a positive spin to it of, you know, just to hopefully allow the teacher to think differently about that practice or whatever you would like for her to kind of really think through in that process, if you will.
The cool thing about this one is it's short and sweet. It is positive. You do have room to write something. If you have a concern, you can still put that in there, or you could do what that first one said. And you could say, hey, let's have a meeting or whatever. See me tomorrow on your conference or this afternoon after school, whatever. And I like it because I promise you, if this was the one that we used, man, we'd have a whole lot more walkthroughs done because that would take us 2 seconds to go in, you know, spend our time in there, but you don't have to figure out the walkthrough form in order to get the walkthrough done. You just have to check and write your comment. It would be, I like it. I think I'm going to share it with Dr. Nunez.
That's actually good.
Yeah, I really like this one too. So that's the reason why it was one of the ones that I picked out. Any other things? Sweet. All right. Last one, and then we'll move into ours.
Where did you pick it out from?
So the assignment before this, we had to watch an ELA classroom, a math class, and a health class. And we had to pick 3 different walkthrough forms off of Google or a different search engine. And so these are the 3, they had to be 3 different style of walkthrough forms. And so these are the 3 that I chose to use when I did my walkthrough on those 3 videos. So each of these got their own video, if that makes sense.
I like that one.
But it was just one of those, like I typed in classroom walkthrough observation forms and that's what it popped up. Then this is again the last one. It's a little bit more detailed in like specifics, but there's lots of different options here as well. So what are the pros and cons that y'all see from y'all's administrator points or viewpoint that are good about this one?
For me, the cool part of this one is that it tells you, if it says subject matter content, it tells you what that means. What does that look like? It tells you what organization looks like. It tells you what rapport looks like. And I think that's kind of cool because it helps the teacher know and begin those conversations using, well, I always thought I had good rapport, but impartial, no, I have favorites. Provides feedback, no, I forget to do that all the time. I just move on. You know what I mean? It would help them to be self-reflective as well. what I think would be cool about this one is if it had that on it, but it still had some boxes. So maybe the one you make kind of incorporates the second one and this one together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I agree. I agree that it gives definition, if you will, to the title of every one of the columns, if you will. The only comment I have is, as an administrator, it would be pretty time consuming, especially, writing descriptions and comments on each box. A lot of times, again, teachers, if you leave any empty blanks, they might express concern or why wasn't that marked. Again, you're not going to see all these things in a 3 to 5 to 7 minute walkthrough. You're just not. So, although I do like the definition under each item so that teachers know specifically what the observer is looking at. The concern I would have is just being open-ended and not having a checkbox, if you will, to make it more simplistic, if you will, in the delivery.
I like the strengths and the suggestions for improvement on the bottom. One thing for years now I've always done is area of refinement and area of reinforcement. And that's the same thing, reinforcing, we're reinforcing their strengths, what's going well. Refinement, those are things that we need to improve and do a little bit better on. It's a nice way of saying, it needs some work. On the form itself, and that's a deal where we've just had to use that disclaimer in the past with teachers. Just because something isn't checked doesn't mean that it was not occurring. It just means that I wasn't going in with that specific lens or that focus that day. Because if that was the case and we were checking off everything we saw, then we'd have teachers lining up, and sometimes you do upset. Mr. Lamone, you didn't check this off. I did this. You were sitting right there and I did it. And yes, sir, I understand you did do it, but I wasn't specifically looking for that. I actually came in today just to see what y'all were doing with, X, Y, Z. And that's a lot of white space on there. Some things I don't need to specifically handwrite everything out. Again, I know earlier I said I like open-ended, and I do, but I like it for, just for maybe comments or things that I observed specifically. Some of those things, again, it's kind of a double-edged blade. Sometimes a checkbox isn't enough and it's too easy to go in and just check off everything. Sometimes there needs to be that detail. There needs to be specific evidence. But then there are other instances where it's perfectly appropriate to come in and just check off an item or two and leave a general comment at the end, depending on what our lens or our focus is that day.
Makes sense.
It might be kind of cute if you had let's say effective, if you had like sensitivity, and then you had a checkbox in front of exhibit sensitivity to students' personal culture, gender differences and disabilities, responds appropriately in a non-threatening and proactive learning environment. A little box on each one of those, and then boom, you check it. You check that you saw that. In other words, you may or may not see these things, but the things that I did see, I checked them.
Yes.
I don't know, that's kind of I still like the other one a lot though, as well.
So on Ms. Garrick's note, Coach, if those were all individual check boxes, that would be neat. And if you did that, now visually, to me, it begins to look like an observation or an actual summative form for t-tests, because you have each dimension, and they have specific checkboxes. Below that, it has a comment or evidence for that dimension. And then at the very bottom, you have the same thing for the entire domain. So if you were to do that, it does look reminiscent of that. And also maybe it's a deal where we have 4 different domain walkthroughs. And we go in and we say, today we're doing domain 3 walkthroughs. And I'm only going to focus on dimensions 3.1, 3.2, and 3.5. And that's all that you would see. So, that's kind of what this would look like if you were to do that, which I think there's a benefit to that as well, because it looks like what the official document would be.
Awesome. Anything else? Sweet. All right, so now we're gonna look at ours. They all use on us. Maybe. Can y'all see that? No? Oops. Can y'all see this?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, we always see it from our side once we go in and we look at it, and all of these have check boxes. And it makes a lot more sense now that y'all are saying that y'all have a goal in mind and what you're looking for. And so, because I am one of those teachers, I'm like, wait, like I only have, one section that's checked off. And then I'm like, but I know I did these other things, but that makes more sense now. So thank you for that. But I mean, there's just a lot on this page to look at.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. That's it. But if they are categorized, like Mr. Lamone was saying, by domain, and they go with t-tests. So it makes sense, but it still might be a little,
Too much.
yeah, a little too much, a little too much to figure out at the time you're standing in there for 5 minutes in a classroom. You're not going to see all of those things. You're just not. So I think the one that you could do could be mixing those other two. And I think that it would increase our ability to understand, increase our teachers' ability to understand what it is that we're seeing. This one has some of it, adjust instruction to maintain student engagement. It is, I just feel like that other one was a little more specific.
And like I said, Coach, personally, our form that you have here that you're showing us, if we had an individual form for each domain with, pretty much the same stuff, but divided up by domain, because typically when we go in, we have an idea of which domain we're specifically looking at. I mean, I know if I'm going in and I want to see planning, evidence of planning, some days I go in and I want to see instruction, and that's it. Also, you've got folks like me. I always joke that I'm like a dog in a building full of squirrels. Well, this form has a bunch of squirrels on it, and sometimes I'll walk in with the intention of looking at instruction, and next thing I know, I'll look up and I've been checking off things that are under planning, under classroom management. I'm kind of all over the place, and that happens to me as well. Sometimes it's easy to lose focus because the form has it has so many things on it, maybe too many. So a little focus would be beneficial for the administrator, and it would also help the teacher looking at it, because they're not seeing 90% of the form is blank and not checked or not filled in. And maybe if we focus on it a little bit more, they know, oh, okay, well, I got a domain 2 walkthrough from Mr. Lamone today, so I know he was specifically looking at 2.1, 2.3, 2.4, because those were the only ones that he was working out of on this form. So you bring up, you prompted some good conversation and some good thought there.
It is. It's a lot whenever you get it from the teacher standpoint to look at it. Because I really like to go through and look and see the comments made. And I mean, we're always trying to grow and get better. So it's a lot sometimes.
I think that other one, the definitions of the things, if it said domain 2 instruction, and then those little boxes were here, and they were the specific definitions, but one by one with a little box beside them, you could go domain instruction. I saw this, I saw this, I saw this, boom. Even if it is still on the same page, it would make it into a one page. This is sort of, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't really appreciate it that much right at this moment, since I can see those other ones and how it might be a little easier. And as a teacher, and I taught for 16 years, so it's not like I was in there for 1 or 2. I know I would have learned from that if I said, oh, when they're coming in there and when it says whatever, it means this. That would have been really good for me as a learner, because I would have grown from that. I would have said, oh, then that's what I need to make sure I'm doing from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I ever got another walkthrough again in my life or that whole entire year, I would have really tried to make myself do those things and incorporate them into my classroom.
Well, and again, we got to go back to what is the purpose of the formal or informal walkthrough document. It is to provide uh, constructive feedback for the individual so that we can maximize effective instruction as best as possible. It shouldn't be just a, you know, a requirement just to have one. It really should be a working document on how do we improve instruction. You know, there's many out there. I think by doing this activity, you can see obviously there's 4 different ones, and I'm sure there's a lot more out there because every district is different. I do believe that, you know, it's like with anything else. You take bits and pieces from all and create one that really works for your campus or your district. Personally, as we're looking at the ones that we use, I understand one of the reasons why we went with that is because it's aligned with the
Yeah.
actual evaluation that our teachers are under with in reference to T-tests. So I do believe in that aspect of it, because if you're going to evaluate teachers on the instrument, they need to know specifically what it's going to entail. But I do think that you could actually, I don't know that you can see it, but it was the second one that you went over. I think utilizing this platform with the vocabulary that she just mentioned, with maybe aligning it to T-test, I think would really, create one that would really serve all the purposes that we just discussed.
Yes.
Sweet. All right, one last document to look at. So if you were, there it is. So if we were looking at the data from English 1, and so I just picked the English 1 because it's right here at the top.
And it's the lowest.
Yeah, I know. What is it that you would be walking through those classrooms truly looking for in order to help with these scores, if that makes sense?
So I think as you look at scores, there's a lot of different factors that go into those scores. But when you walk in to any classroom, I think a couple variables that you have to look at. What Mr. Limon referenced it earlier, student engagement. What are the students doing? Another thing is the level of complexity that the lesson's being delivered. In other words, what kind of questions is the teacher asking? Is it higher order questions that the kids really having to stop and think abstractly about it? Or is it very surface comprehension level, yes and no type of questions? The state assessment does require, in order for kids to score at certain levels, for the curriculum to be at a rigorous rate. So as you walk in, 1, how are the kids being engaged? And then 2, what levels is the instruction being provided? Is it at the comprehension level, or is it at the evaluation application synthesis level? So those are just 2 factors that as we walk into classrooms, we should be asking ourselves in every walkthrough.
Awesome.
And then the instruction and the level of engagement. What is it about, and what is going on with the kids, and then also very important, tier 1 instruction. What are the teachers teaching? And clearly the other side, are the students learning? Are they engaged?
What I always like to see is just, it's been used over and over, but engagement. I like seeing interactive or maybe experience-based learning, student-centered learning, where the students are doing rather than sitting and getting. When it's sit and get, that's going to be the lowest level of, lowest level of learning taking place there. But if students are actually having experiences and participating and doing things,
Creating, applying.
creating exactly those higher level strategies, those verbs, then we're going to have a better depth of knowledge. That's from the depth of knowledge wheel there. So I completely agree. It really just depends on specifically what those student needs are.
Awesome. Any other things?
Nope.
Sweet. Well, thank you guys so much. It really looks like the second and third options that I showed you, just kind of mixing those and really giving check boxes in certain domains, and making it simpler in a sense of more detailed, simpler details of what exactly we're looking for, and making that into the one-page document is what I'm getting from. Is that good?
Yes.
All thoughts? Sweet.
And maybe organizing it to a degree by domains. That would be kind of cool too. If you did all that, you better send that to me because I bet it's going to be good.
You might be actually
I
using.
will send it. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you guys as soon as I get it done. I'm about to do it right now. Organized by domain and have checkboxes. So really just making it look like option 2 with 3 and 4 questions. All righty. All right, guys, again, I appreciate your time. I know y'all are busy people, so I'm not going to take any more of your time. Thank you so much for helping me get this next step in becoming one of your helpers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. See ya.
Bye.